build a cabinet that we can mount on the wall. Be 5 feet wide and 3 feet tall and about a foot deep.
All right, you got cabinet doors on the front, and then we got
Cabinet
shelves
doors,
in the back.
adjustable shelves inside.
How do you want to make the doors?
Well, we're going to make the doors out of pegboard. That way we can hang things outside without opening the cabinet, things that we get to regularly.
Good idea.
On the inside, we'll make the box out of this 3/4 inch plywood.
I like it. So how do we get started?
We'll rip this plywood down on our table saw. I want to make sure I measure on the inside of the tooth and lock it down. Now I'm ready to make my first rip. The next thing we want to do is we want to rip down our 2 sides and our centerpiece. Now our center divider is the same width as our top and bottom, so I want to rip that next. Our sides are going to be 1/2 inch wider. The back of the cabinet is going to sit in a rabbet on each side. So what I've done is I've drawn a line 1/2 inch on my scrap piece of wood. I drop the blade till it meets the line, and that's my 1/2 inch depth. And now I want to set my rip vents 1/2 inch because that's the depth of my plywood, but this time I want to measure to the outside of the blade. So I'm going to set that at 1/2 inch. On my first cut, I'll stand the board up. That's my first pass. Now I take the board, I lay it down on the saw and make my second pass. There's my rabbet.
The cabinet has 2 shelves on either side of a center divider, and we want these shelves to be adjustable.
Right, and to make the shelves adjustable, we're going to use these pieces of metal right here that are called shelf standards. On the shelf standards, there's these little slots right here. These shelf clips can be put into the slots any way you want them, making the shelves adjustable.
Now, we could surface mount those, but you don't want to do that.
Right. I like to recess them so they'll sit flush with the side. For that, we'll make a dado. To make our dado cut, we simply stack a series of blades together, making a wider cut. It's actually called a stacked dado. It's a series of blades. On the outside is a standard blade. On the inside, there are chippers. You add them or subtract them depending on the width of the cut. Now here in the center divider to the cabinet, I actually had to offset the standards. The reason I offset them is because of the length of the nail. When I drive the nail into the standard at the top, I didn't want it to hit the back side of the other standard, pushing it out slightly. The top and the bottom of our cabinet are attached to the sides using pocket hole screws. I first had to drill the holes for the pocket hole using a pocket hole jig. The jig holds my drill at the right angle. The drill has a stop on it, so I drill at the right depth.
In addition to the pocket screws, we'll also use some wood glue. Okay. Get the center shelf in here.
Put it on the line. We'll put a clamp on it. Got it?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to put a couple screws up here.
We're going to put some glue along the top, the bottom, the sides, and the divider.
And then we can install our 1/2 inch plywood on top of the wet glue. We'll tack the back in place using some small brads.
And then I'll just screw it off.
Each door is made of 2 stiles and 2 rails, and they're made out of pine.
So that's going to give us a frame, right?
That's right. Now the first thing we did is we put a dado in here. But I didn't put the dado in with a dado blade. I actually used the blade that I have in my circular saw. And I wanted to make it on center. So I put the blade a little bit off center. I ran it through once, spun it around, and ran it through the other. And that gave me a dado right down the center. Now I had to cut the tenon. To cut the tenon, I set the depth of my blade, the distance that I wanted, so I had the right thickness of the tenon, and I made a series of cross cuts the length of my tenon.
And then that tenon fits right into the dado on the stiles.
Gives us a nice tight fit. Now the first thing we want to do is glue up 3 of the pieces together. Now we'll just use a couple of micro pins to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. All right, now we'll slide that panel right in. Now we don't want to glue the panel in there, we want it to float. And now the last rail. Because we're going to hang heavy tools on the door, we're going to use a piano hinge for maximum strength. Well, Kevin, we finally have a place where we can start storing some of our stuff.
And we got plenty of storage, Tom. Shelves on the inside, and on the outside, we've got doors where everything is organized, and you can see your